Univision Unews. I'm Lorraine Caceres. Thank you for joining us today. We begin this hour with coast-to-coast storms wreaking havoc on the nation. Millions of people are cleaning up today after a devastating and deadly storm system swept across parts of the south. People in the Pacific Northwest waking up to snow, and in the east, it's weather whiplash after record temperatures that felt more likely like May than January. Aranza Loizaga has the details. Another earthquake rattling the already shell-shocked U.S. territory of Puerto Rico. A 5.9 magnitude quake hit New York City. Has the largest Puerto Rican population of any city in the world, and folks there are doing what they can to help friends and family back home. Here's Fabiola Galindo.
About 40,000 pounds of donations to fill up their first container. That is set to leave New York on January 25th. They say they prefer to do it privately.
Now to Washington. It's a big week on the Capitol. Speaker Nancy Pelosi signaling she will send the articles of impeachment to the Senate after weeks-long impasse. This as Republicans weigh in on the possibility of immediate dismissal. Here's the very latest. Pelosi could send the articles Tuesday night or Wednesday at any point during the day, but the House needs to pass a resolution naming impeachment managers before that happens. Meanwhile, we're learning Lev Parnas, a Rudy Giuliani associate facing charges, has just handed authorities more documents that relate to the impeachment. Now to the continued tensions with Iran. Iran's leaders are dealing with another day of protests. Demonstrators denouncing what they called lying and incompetence by the country's leadership. This comes after Iran admitted to accidentally shooting down a Ukrainian passenger airline. Meanwhile, back in the United States, there are lingering questions about the scale of the threat used to justify a drone strike on the country's top military leader. Pablo Gato reports from Washington, D.C. And this as a majority of Americans said they disapprove of President Donald Trump's handling of Iran and feel less safe, according to a new ABC News Ipsos poll released Sunday. For the third day in a row, thousands of Iranians, as we were just reported, protesters have taken to the streets in anger over the government's admission that their military unintentionally shot a Ukrainian passenger plane last week, killing all on board. Protesters are now calling for the resignation of Iran's supreme leader. Let's go to Eric Loeb. He's an international. And with just 3 weeks from the Iowa caucuses, the state has become a tight four-way race that anyone can still win. A new poll puts Bernie Sanders in the lead for the first time. Rafael Rodriguez has the details. And sources are telling CNN that when Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren met in private in 2018, he told her that a woman can't win the presidency. Warren apparently told Sanders she disagreed. In a statement to CNN, Sanders denied the characterization of that meeting. Warren's camp has declined to comment on the report. A Wisconsin appeals court judge has ordered the state's election commission to immediately begin removing up to 209,000 names from the state's voter rolls or face hundreds of dollars in fines every day they don't do so. The judge said he cannot wait for the state Supreme Court to decide the case and refused to put his ruling on hold while the legal fight continues. Democrats worry the purge will unfairly affect voters. Republicans say they want to ensure people who have moved won't be able to vote at their old address. The case is being closely watched as Wisconsin is a battleground state that President Donald Trump won by fewer than 23,000 votes in 2016. Turning to immigration, ICE agents can check a person's identity in seconds. That's why some experts are now recommending places that undocumented immigrants should stay away from in order to avoid deportation. Here's Yania Ponte. National news: lawmakers in Illinois are proposing a bill that calls for schools to add sexting to their sex education classes. House California is posing to expand state health coverage to low-income undocumented immigrants. It's a move that, if it becomes a reality, will provide access to health care for a vulnerable group of residents who, until now, have had to address many of their medical needs in the shadows or ignore them entirely. Here's Jaime Garcia. And we're just 2 weeks into a new year, and on a personal level, many seem very excited about 2020 and what it has in store. But as for the fate of the country, that's apparently another story. Peggy Carranza has the details on a new survey. The suspect in the New York Hanukkah attack has pleaded not guilty to federal charges against him in connection with the crime. Police say a Georgia police officer is receiving care after getting hit by a train last Tuesday, and it was all caught on camera. We have to warn you, this video could be disturbing to some. But here's for those who can see it. Take a look. Police say Polk County go to Alaska, where it's being called an amazing story of survival. A man has been rescued after spending 3 weeks alone in the wilderness there, stranded after his cabin burned to the ground. His nearest neighbor 20 miles away. Here's Paola Byron with the story. And he was very lucky. Now to our series Second Chances, where we take a look at the difficulties people face after leaving prison. A Miami man is the perfect example of how the past does not define who you will be in the future. Roger Borges has the inspiring story of a man who went from prison to law school. Australia, it appears an emergency summit in Great Britain has ended with at least some idea on how to handle the Duke and Duchess's announcement that they will step back as senior members of the royal family. Queen Elizabeth has agreed to, quote, period of transition where Harry and Meghan will spend time in both Britain and Canada. Azul Alvarez has the background on what led to this point. In today's Tech Report, we're talking cars, new planets, and cracking down on fake reviews. Here's Annabelle Sedano.
Hi there, that's right, and we begin with this. Facebook and eBay have cracked down on people seeking to get paid for penning bogus reviews on shopping and review websites. It's part of a new agreement with British regulators after concerns about the problem last June were raised. Facebook has removed 188 groups and disabled 24 accounts in response to the problem, while eBay has banned 140 users, according to authorities. Moving on to this one, a high school student has made an out-of-this-world discovery. He discovered a planet, and it just so happens to be an uncommon one. Now, what's even more interesting is that the 17-year-old did so during his third day at an internship with NASA. He was assigned to look through the TESS telescope and study how two stars would cross paths, creating an eclipse. That's when he noticed something different was in their orbit. The planet is only the 13th planet of its kind ever to be discovered. Wow. And finally, Tesla cars will soon be able to talk to nearby pedestrians. We already knew that Tesla has begun adding external speakers to its cars in order to comply with new safety regulations that require electric cars to produce artificial noise. Now it seems these speakers could be used for much more. In a tweet announcing the functionality, the CEO shared a short clip of a Model 3 driving past while its speaker plays a clip saying, "Well, don't just stand there staring, hop in." In his tweet, Musk says Tesla will soon talk to people if you want. And then, of course, there's also the option of farting. The car, that is. I'm Annabelle Sedano, and that was your daily dose of tech news. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you, Annabelle. Up next, a couple will tell us how California's 10th annual Long Beach Comic-Con, featuring diversity and inclusion, and a hardcover bilingual cover book series was announced, featuring a Latina who discovers she is a superhero at her quinceañera. Nidia Cavazos reports. And finally today, an Ohio couple celebrated 60 a long marriage, because mine wouldn't last. And that's all the time we have for the first hour of second hour of Unews. Please join us tomorrow for more headlines.